Hello, Cyberspace. It's me, Angie, and I welcome both you and your ears to an episode of Life, Love, Music, and Space Travel. In case you're wondering who Angie is, I'm Angie, and I'm super stoked to spend some time sharing with y'all some of my experiences and thoughts on living, loving, music, and space travel, or spiritual experiences as I often refer to as space travel. A rather broad spectrum, right? Well, my hope is to always share something that resonates with, intrigues, excites, or perhaps inspires you. On that note, I invite you to sit back, buckle up, and take a little trip out into the cosmos with me. Hello, Cyberspace. It's me, Angie, coming to you on a Tuesday night, July 12th to be exact, year 2022, just in case you're wondering. And I am coming to you with episode number 19 of my podcast, Life, Love, Music, and Space Travel. And tonight's episode is what I'm going to call a special edition. And it's all going to be focused on the space travel component of my podcast. For some of you who are already listeners, you may already know about the space travel component. For those of you who aren't, I liken the space travel piece to my ketamine infusion experiences, where I feel like I leave the planet for a little bit of time. Spiritual experiences also. The ketamine infusion process has been a life-changing and life-saving part of my life this last, 9 months maybe. I'm already feeling a little bit of a vulnerability hangover by putting this information out there, but I'm feeling it's really pertinent and that the time is right. Today, actually, I had infusion number 11 over in Myrtle Beach at the Future Psych Ketamine Clinic. I do want to put out the disclaimer, get it out there right away. I am not a doctor, nurse practitioner, psychologist, therapist, physician in any way, shape, or form. I am not here necessarily advocating for ketamine in any way, shape, or form. What I am going to do is share my experience with it. I know there are a lot of people who are curious about it. I've had it come up in conversation quite a bit, and I'm pretty much an open book. If I can share something that might help somebody else in some way, shape, or form, I really want to do my best to offer that opportunity to them. Here I go. I did start this podcast end of February, March maybe, and it was largely spurred on a few things. A dear friend of mine, Alex Mintling, who also has a podcast. It's called The Builder's Journey. Definitely take a listen to that. You can find it on all the streaming platforms. He and I have known each other for a very long time. Earlier in the year of 2021, we sort of reconnected and started communicating. And at that time in his life, he was going through some life changes, some pretty heavy stuff. And he mentioned to me eventually his experience with the ketamine process. It was very new to him. I have already spoken with him. He's okay with my mentioning him. I don't want to give much of his experience. He talks about it on his podcast also. And I think episode 56, if I'm not mistaken, of his podcast, The Builder's Journey, we talk about some psychedelic stuff. And a few episodes later, we also talk about our experiences. So it's well worth a listen. And I will look to get the exact episode numbers, and perhaps I'll be able to share them in my show notes. He was really my introduction to this whole idea of ketamine. I think like most of you out there, maybe not most of you, lumping you into a box, but many people, including myself, when I heard of ketamine, I thought of Special K, the horse tranquilizer, the rave drug. I did not think of it in any aspect as far as it being helpful in the realm of depression, anxiety, PTSD, or any of those things. And so when Alex and I reconnected, there was, I had, as I've also talked about, the last few years of my life have been pretty challenging. And I was definitely in some fairly dire straits at time. He started to share with me this idea of ketamine, and he had actually also heard about it from a few different people. Maybe in another episode, I'll go into that further. But I decided to do a little bit of investigating, educate myself on what this ketamine thing might be about. As the year went on, things got a little bit heavier for me. I've also mentioned quite often that I am in recovery and have been on a journey of recovery and self-discovery for quite some time. So I was doing and have been doing for a very long time now the things that I was supposed to be doing. So I thought, in order to feel better, I have not had a drink in a long time. I just also, it's been about 20 years without a drink. I put down the weed it was just 4 years ago on July 5th. So at this point last year, I thought I was doing everything that I needed to be doing. As I mentioned, life was heavy. And so I also thought that I was feeling the way I was feeling because life was heavy. I was in the midst of, I had already been divorced, actually. The divorce had been finalized, but we were still living together. It was very challenging and sad for both of us. We weren't sure what we were doing with the house. So our living situation was incredibly uncomfortable, unhealthy. I was in limbo. I wasn't really sure if I was staying or going. I was about to turn 50, so it was maybe a midlife crisis. Maybe I'll live to be 100 now. But I was definitely going through some challenging stuff. And I figured this is just what happens. This is just the way you feel about it. At one point, I was wandering really around for weeks, please, asking God, higher power, force, source, whatever's out there, please to not give me any more. I couldn't handle any more. I couldn't take on any more. Alex had actually suggested one time, out of his own experience, that I try calling the suicide hotline. I would not have called myself suicidal at that time. I was not thinking of taking myself out of the picture, but I was definitely in need of talking to somebody, so I decided to take that option. So here I was, calling the suicide hotline, calling the hope line. Those people are fantastic. I cannot speak highly enough about them. They helped me more than I expected, and my gratitude for them is beyond measure. I still needed some help. I don't know that I ever labeled myself as depressed, nor did I really know much about PTSD. And so I did. I started looking up stuff about ketamine. I started looking up stuff about PTSD. I did some educating, and I decided that it might be something that would benefit me. For anyone who's curious, there's a process to it. At least I suggest going through the process. I reached out to a clinic in Glenwood Springs, for those of you near in Colorado. It was called the Apex Clinic. And they requested a doctor's referral. I started to go through the process that was necessary. Called my doctor, had the same doctor for 15 years, and let her know that I needed this referral. And eventually there was communication error. There was issues between myself and the Apex Clinic. The Glenwood Canyon caught on fire, and the travel stuff was very challenging. They were out of town. So I decided to try another option and ended up contacting High Country Wellness and Infusion in Frisco, Colorado. And Mandy, who was the head gal over there, also wanted a doctor's referral. And so I went through the doctor's referral process, got that to her, and eventually ended up setting up my first appointment. It was not an easy process. It took some time for me. I didn't force or push anything. I was very hesitant, in truth, about the whole idea. I didn't know what to think. My experience with drugs has been troublesome at times, and I kind of lumped it into the category of psychedelics that I wasn't really sure if I should be dabbling in. I'm not exactly sure that ketamine is a psychedelic. It's dissociative, I do know, but I wasn't sure. When the day finally came to get to my appointment, it felt like a long time coming, and I had set it up for September 14th. The people in my life who know me and love me well were all behind me. This wasn't a decision that I made on my own. I had the support of my family. I had the support of my dear friends, and I had the support of my physician. I was definitely very much looking forward to whatever was going to take place. And so my friend April actually was all about getting me there. She said, "We are going to get you there." And we headed up Vail Pass in her car, and her car died midway up Vail Pass. And I remember her looking at me and saying, "Hey, Ange, we are going to get you to your appointment." I don't know. Part of me thought, well, maybe the universe is conspiring against me. Maybe I'm not supposed to go. And her fantastic husband, Ian, came and picked us up. Oh, no, actually, I take that back. Actually, it was Maddie who came to pick us up. I think maybe April had called to see if Maddie could get Ian's truck. There was conspiring with me to get me there. I do know that. So I'm so grateful for the people who have supported me. That being said, they came, they rescued us on Vail Pass and drove us to Frisco and dropped me off. April had initially said that she was going to come in with me, and I kind of wanted to go by myself, in truth. And so that's what I did. I ended up going in by myself. Mandy, the practitioner, had actually suggested that also the night before, she said, don't watch any scary movies. Come in with an intention, which I did. And I went in with headphones because I wasn't really sure about whether I should be listening to music or what was going to take place. She suggested that I go onto Spotify, and she had a ketamine playlist that was picked out. Yeah, you can go onto Spotify and pick out a ketamine playlist. It was incredibly helpful. I put the headphones on. The infusion process takes place through an IV, so she hooked me up. I put my headphones on. I leaned back. I chanted out my intention, which was relief. I was looking for relief. And I embarked on my first ketamine infusion experience. It was, I will say, I sent a message to my friend Alex after it was finished, and I think my message said, "That was fucking great." I don't say any of this making light of the situation. Once again, I went in understanding that I was really suffering. I was in deep depression. I was struggling and dealing with living with trauma and PTSD, all of the stuff that had piled up on me that I didn't even really know. And after that infusion was over, my dad actually was in town at the time, and he came and picked me up. And I remember, I think I told him as well, when I got into the car, the first thing I really noticed was that this blanket of depression and sadness was gone. And I don't want to sound hokey either, like, oh my gosh, some miracle deal. But that was my experience after that first session, this heavy blanket of sadness and depression that I knew was there, but I didn't know how heavy it was gone in a manner that was so noticeable. I said to him, that blanket of sadness and depression was gone. I actually went out after and got a tattoo. I got a tattoo that says, "I am courageous, I am worthy, I am enough." The experience itself was incredibly spiritual for me. I feel like I did leave the planet for a period of time. It was incredibly relieving. There was a level of detachment that I felt that gave me, I felt like I got a break. I don't know if other people need to go in by themselves. If you can bring somebody with you, you don't have to go in alone. I believe it's your preference. Some places have a TV, some places have their own music. There's a lot of different options. But for myself, in the process, I had to ground myself pretty regularly. I was aware enough that I could open my eyes, and I knew I was in Frisco in Mandy's clinic. And yet when I closed my eyes, it was though I was leaving the planet. I felt like I got a pretty regular message from what I will call the GOD that told me I was doing a great job. It was very spiritual for me. I'm really grateful for that. I appreciated that part of the experience, not just for myself taking a pill of some kind or, adding that piece into the whole experience was a really wonderful component. And so it had been suggested to me that I go through the 6 infusion process, 6 infusions within a 2 to 3 week period, as close together every 2 to 3 days, if I could do that. After that first day, I recall thinking to myself, holy cow, I really do feel much better. It wasn't like I was feeling high or manic in any way. I felt better. I felt better than I had felt in a long time. And then I could really recall it was just an incredibly noticeable change in my mood and demeanor. And I thought, for a short period of time, maybe I don't need to come back for the rest. Maybe 1 will be enough. Then I decided to follow through with the process. Listen to the doctor, listen to the suggestion. And so that first visit was on September 14th, and the next visit was on September 17th, then the 20th, the 29th, October 7th, October 13th. I finished on the 13th, actually the day that I left before leaving to go to She Podcasts, which right there, things started changing for me pretty dramatically. I was still living in the situation at home. I was feeling capable and different in a way that I had not felt. I was feeling much lighter. I don't know that I would have made it. I don't know how I would have made it through that last bit of the experience of closing out on our home, selling the home, closing, moving the last of our items out, departing. I don't know. I can't imagine how challenging it would have been. So I'm incredibly grateful for having been introduced to this idea. And as I've mentioned, this isn't necessarily for everybody, and I'm not pushing it out there, but I'm pretty sure that there are other folks who are like-minded as myself and may find that this fits into their wheelhouse of medical assistance. Yeah, that was the first 6. I did eventually go, we sold the house. And once again, this has just kind of been my journey for the last few months around adding ketamine into my life and how things have transpired since then. The last infusion being on October 13th, I decided to set up a booster appointment. And I've been told that not everybody needs more. Maybe they can go further along without it. Maybe you can just get a booster. And so I went with the suggestion of my practitioner, and I set up an appointment for November 19th. So that was number 7. And after that, I set up an appointment for December 19th. And that was the day before I left Colorado. I do want to throw in there as well, you can't drive yourself to and from. You need to have somebody to drive you to and from. I want to express my gratitude for, once again, April and Maddie, Ian, and my dear friend Jeannie, who picked me up. She never asked any questions. We've known each other for a very, very, very long time. I love her dearly. Jeannie Adams, you know who you are. She drove me there. She drove me back. She made time for me. My gratitude and love for her is beyond measure as well. And I thank you. For Dad, also for coming to pick me up after that first experience. My dear friend Alex drove me to my December 19th one, and also to the one right before I left for She Podcasts. I'm grateful for him as well. I guess I'll talk a little bit about the effects of, or what I feel like, what have the changes been? As mentioned, that first experience was really life-changing. The blanket of sadness and depression that I really didn't know was there in the way that it was there was gone and has yet to return. I did look up on, the old Google machine, as Alex likes to call it, the Internet Express, and I looked up how ketamine works. And there's a ton of information that you can find out there. This is from looks like it's from a website called A Healthy Place or Healthy Place. And this is it says, how does ketamine work for depression? I just found, this says the technical details of how ketamine helps depression, and I will include this in the show notes as well. How ketamine helps with depression is currently under debate. One theory suggests that a particular subunit of a cortical MNDA receptor, known as GLU-N2B, acts to suppress signaling and repress protein synthesis. Once ketamine, a GLU-N2B antagonist, is applied, these changes are reversed, and this results in an antidepressant effects in both human and rodent models. End quote. I should have started that off with quotes. But I feel like, because there's something else that we'll talk about, the neurotransmitters and the ability to, how our brain sort of stops building or allowing these neuropathways to be created. So just a really quick additional deal here. Quote, neurons communicate with one another by releasing chemicals known as neurotransmitters, which transfer information by binding to receptor proteins on the surface of other neurons. Drugs such as ketamine also bind to these receptors, and ketamine works by blocking a specific receptor called the N-methyl-D aspartate, NMDA receptor. And because ketamine restricts the activation of these NMDA receptors, it is theorized that normal levels of protein synthesis are restored and neuron communication is improved in the brain's cortex. This in turn is thought to reduce depression. End quote. And so what I can say, with all that medical jargon, which I know I don't all understand completely by any means, what I do know is that there's been a noticeable change in my reaction to life in general. My very small understanding of, let's say, how perhaps the PTSD or trauma, how I react to it, the old fight, flight, freeze, fawn things that take place, I know that I have changed in my reaction to life in general. I have had all these, quote, tools in my toolbox that I've had such a challenge implementing into my personal life. I have reacted the same way to things over and over again. I want to say straight up, I stopped biting my nails after 40 years of biting them. No shit, they are growing beautifully. I have no desire to bite them. No, I wish I could change some of the other habits that I have, but I'm a work in progress. I know that my reaction to people, places, and things, for goodness sake, I've been in the service industry for 30 plus years. Now, don't get me wrong. I know that it was a big deal to remove myself from the living situation. I love dearly my ex-husband. He knows that. I tell him all the time. I did not want to get divorced. I wish things were differently. But this is the way they are, and they're better now than they were before. I think we'll both say that honestly. Leaving the situation was definitely helpful. And yet my grief and my process through accepting and dealing with these changes has been manageable, not life-ending. I have been grieving for a long time, but I feel like my emotional wellness is quote on point. I definitely am still having feelings, but I'm handling life in a way that I have not been able to handle life in a very, very, very long time. Does that mean I don't need a therapist? No. I recently reached out and finally have an appointment set up for a new therapist, which I'm very excited about. So I still need all of these other things in my life, but things have just changed. I had, prior to being here, I really was the bitchy waitress. I was very challenged in my service industry position, and I am fine. I have found a new zest for it. I have been given, I've been reborn in the waitress industry, and I am definitely the waitress you want right now. There's just a lot of things that, my reaction to life has changed. And whether that's because I have these new neural pathways being built and I'm not reacting the same way that I used to react because of these NMDA things, I don't know. What I can say is that this is working for me. It's working for me. Once I got here, I was able to, I had initially found a clinic I was excited because it was about 7 minutes away from my parents' house here in Wilmington. It was called the Calypso Wellness Center, but very sadly, the office was empty, and I'm not sure when the office closed, but it did close. So I continued to search around, and 4 months after I got here, on of all days, 4/20, April 20th, I went to my first appointment at the Future Psych Ketamine Clinic in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The practitioner's name is Angel, which I thought was very appropriate. And I have been going there ever since. I have since had 3 more. I had one on 4/20. That was my 9th. My 10th infusion was on June 15th. And I just had an infusion today, July 12th. I guess for me, I feel like I notice a little bit of a change in attitude, perhaps. And I have just opted to go for the booster. I've been to a doctor here in Wilmington, a general doctor, and I've explained all of my stuff to them. So I don't feel like I'm doing something that is sneaky or drug abuse or anything like that. And that's just me kind of putting out there my fear of judgment. I am human. So I do get fearful of what other people might think of me. Not that I am allowing myself to sit in that place and let it control me. I am doing, I believe, what is the best for me. And I'm grateful to be able to sit in that place in my mind. Mom has driven me to my treatment since I've been here. I'm incredibly grateful for her. She goes and does a little shopping. And then we go out for lunch, or we go thrifting, or we've gone to the beach. So for anyone who's wondering, no, you're not to drive yourself to and from. But once the infusion is over, it's about a 45-minute drip. That's what it is for me. So if I get there at 10, usually I'm out by 12. It takes a little bit of time. I take some time to relax after and let all the effects wear off completely. But I do find that for the most part, I have absolutely thoroughly enjoyed my treatments. There's a milligram that they'll start at, and that, that's stuff that you'll communicate to your doctor about. And then from there, I believe maybe they up the dosage maybe after each infusion or every few infusions. And I have just found that mine are generally, I put the headphones on, I listen to my playlist, and I take a trip off into space for a little bit. I have found them to be incredibly enlightening. That being said, I will say today was interesting. My friend Alex will talk about his infusions, and his have been a bit darker sometimes. You can work through your stuff in the midst of the process. There's some time to think, I guess, and process your life, or perhaps re-experience some of the trauma and get past it and get through it or get over it. I believe everyone has a different experience when they go in, and perhaps a different purpose behind why they're doing what they're doing. But mine have always been really enjoyable, I guess, if that's the right word. I really appreciate the detachment and kind of just time away from the planet. It's given me a very different and open-minded perspective of this life experience I'm living. I can't necessarily put it into terms, but I would love to find a group, some sort of a ketamine support group, or just other people who have gone through the experience, and to hear what it's been like for them. But today's infusion was a little bit, it was quite different, actually. I think maybe my dosage went up a little bit, and it was, for a little while, it was pretty intense. So just for anyone who's going in, you definitely want to be prepared and open-minded and aware of what you're going to put yourself into. The practitioner is always there. I call out to her. She comes in. I'm reminded that everything's okay. I am still on the planet in my chair in their office, and I need that grounding. And then after, once it was over, I hung out for a while, and Mom and I went and had a delicious lunch at a place called the Pulaski Deli. It was delicious, a Polish deli in Myrtle Beach. And I had some kielbasa, and we had pierogies, and this delicious sauerkraut stew. Oh, it was absolutely delicious. Yummy. And then we went and did some thrifting, and Mom drove home in a downpour of rain, and she was wonderful, and I'm grateful for her fantastic driving skills. I know that's kind of all over the place, and I hope that somebody is able to get out of my sharing something in relation to ketamine. If you're curious, I do also say, for anyone in Colorado, in the High Country area, Summit County specific, or Eagle County, High Country Wellness and Infusion, Frisco, Colorado. And one day I actually had an additional infusion. I had like a hydration infusion that you can also do. Mandy was fantastic, and their services were great. The cost, I believe, changes maybe from place to place. When I was going to High Country, it was $325 a session, and I don't have insurance, so it didn't cover anything. But $325, I've definitely spent worse on. It was suggested the 6 sessions, but keep in mind, once again, how much do you spend on Starbucks or whatever your other treats are, and is it worth some peace of mind? Here in Myrtle Beach, their sessions, I think, are $400 if you get them on their own, or you can buy the package deal, which is $2,400, and you get 8, so it ends up being about $300 a piece. I did have to, as I mentioned, going through the clinic, High Country, Colorado, I needed a doctor's referral. I felt really good about that. Had to go talk to my doctor and make sure she was behind me, and she was supportive, and she was curious. And when I called to tell her how things had played out and worked out, she was very happy for me and excited to be able to talk to some of her other patients about it. The Future Psych clinic in Myrtle Beach required an online consult, and I felt good about that too. I talked to the clinician, and we went through our stuff, and I know that there are some places, perhaps you can go to Boulder, and they're all over. There are ketamine clinics all over the United States, probably all over the world. I believe they have a different process for each of them. I guess what I really just want to share is that for anyone who is struggling with depression, PTSD, trauma, maybe this is something you might want to look into. Maybe not. Maybe you know somebody else that it might help. Whenever I talk to people about it, I always suggest that they talk to their doctor, therapist, pick their brain about it, see what they think. I have not had any side effects that I'm aware of that I can speak of coming from a negative place. I haven't. My outlook on life and the way I feel about life is pretty incredible. There's a lot of things. I'm not quite as afraid of anything as I used to be. I don't have the ruminating thinking anymore. I'm not falling into the pits of despair that I used to. I still have plenty of work to do on myself. I'm like I said, I'm going to see my new therapist. I'm checking in with my people and taking care of the things that I will forever need to take care of as long as I'm on this planet. But this has been a great addition to my spiritual life, my recovery life, just my life in general. I kind of feel like that's it overall. I do want to say I am going to include in my show notes also, side note today, kind of want to pay homage to Anne Shulgin, pioneer of psychedelics in therapy. She passed on at 91, transitioned, and I want to say thank you to her and her husband, who was also a big part of she was not a licensed therapist, but he was the scientist and I was the psychologist, quote, is how she put it between their partnership. And they were both they were proponents of really heavy into, I think, rediscovering the MDMA compound and introducing it as a possible mental health treatment. So I'll include the article in my show notes also. I'm grateful for the people who have continue to promote the other side of medicine, not just the pharmaceutical side. I personally really enjoy the psychedelic component and the mind expanding piece that comes along with the psychedelics, I guess. It's definitely my jam, I suppose, if there's going to be medicine. So I am going to close this out, tonight's episode, my rambling and jabbering of my experience. This is my experience only, and I just want to be authentic about this piece of my life. I feel like I know I'm sitting in my room in front of a microphone by myself, but I am going to go out into the world, and I know I have listeners, and I don't want to hide this part of me. I have really come through some very challenging experiences, and I think we all need help sometimes. I know we all need help sometimes, and I am really grateful. I guess I don't want to say traditional medicine just didn't work for me. And this works for me. So whatever it is, go out and find out what works for you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. And surely don't sit on the sidelines worrying perhaps what somebody else might think for fear of their judgment and not taking care of yourself. Too many people I see who are checking out, or too many people who are struggling with whatever their issues are, and out of a fear of trying something that doesn't fall into the mainstream stuff. So lastly, I'm going to reach into Poddecks because y'all know I love Poddecks. Thanks, Travis, for Poddecks. Actually, Mom and I did some Poddeck interview deck stuff today, the hard copies in the car on our way home. So I'm really grateful for the free decks of cards that y'all were giving out at Podfest. Anyway, out of my online app of Poddecks, I pulled out of the mental health deck the question, what did you do today that made you feel good? And today I went and had ketamine infusion number 11. And it was intense. And it was a little hairy for a little bit in there. But I do believe it was necessary and incredibly helpful. And it made me feel good to put self-care at the top of my list and continue to place my wellness at the top of the list for sure. Self-care, wellness, healthcare, all of that. I also went and had lunch with Mom today. I did a little bit of thrifting. I came home, hung out with the dogs, watched some Young and the Restless. What did I do today that made me feel good? I also completed, I bought some concert tickets. Oh yeah, that's how I'll finish this off. Music. a big part of my podcast. I'm super excited, still looking forward to possibly getting to a place where I'm going to be able to, I don't know, maybe get some media passes, backstage stuff, or figure out how to make this work in the media world, because I would love to be able to interview some people for the podcast for sure. But anyway, on my musical agenda, July 22nd, Dave Matthews Band. I got pretty great seats. I'm definitely pretty excited about it. Pretty great seats. The brother and I are going to go. It is a bucket lister for me. I love, love, love Dave Matthews Band. Have never seen them. And that is just a few days before my birthday. So I'm going to finish out 50. I'm going to finish out 50 and with the Dave Matthews Band. And then the following Friday, today I just bought pit tickets for Phish. I haven't seen Phish since the 90s when they opened up for Santana at Saratoga Performing Arts, SPAC. That was my home musical stomping grounds. I'm going with the brother also. I'm going to go see my second show, I think, since the 90s. He's going to go see his 91st show. But I'm pretty excited on the pit tickets and super grateful for Cash or Trade, the Cash or Trade website, cashortrade.org, for anyone out there who is looking to buy concert tickets at face value price or below. That is your place to get tickets. Safe. The people are fantastic. Stacy got me the Dave Matthews Band tickets, and Ange, I believe is her name, got me the Phish tickets. So I think that's about it. I am feeling pretty good about this episode. I hope there's information that helps you. I hope that it inspires you in one way, shape, or form to help yourself, or perhaps pass along the information. Maybe it will help somebody else. Regardless, I hope that I was able to maybe entertain you or educate you in some way with my explanation of the space travel component of the podcast. Feels good to be back on planet Earth. I will say, I do enjoy detaching from the planet, but I'm excited to be here on the planet to live out the rest of this earthly experience, and super grateful for y'all to join me. Also, check out my website, lifelovemusicandspacetravel.com. All right, that's it for now. Thanks for listening. Bye. So we've reached the end of today's episode. Thanks so very much for listening. It's now time to reconnect to planet Earth and all that comes with living on the blue ball. I'd love to hear your ideas for future episode topics, along with any and all positive and or constructive feedback. Please feel free to contact me at ashysbadass@gmail.com. Thanks again for spending some time with me and allowing me to share myself with you. Until next time, please be gentle with yourselves, be kind to animals, and do all you can to allow your authentic selves to shine brightly.